Good evening. Welcome to episode 21, titled Defeated in the Life Lived series. I wanted to do this and call it Defeat because as I think about those who are depressed and suicidal, there are obviously a number of things and definitions you can come up with and even experience on your daily basis. And while I'll spend possibly one or several different episodes discussing suicide in general, one of the things and one of the terms that I typically think of when I think of suicide is someone who's defeated. And it comes to a point where they don't really know what to do anymore. And it seems like taking your own life is kind of the only answer or conclusion you can come up with. So when I think about defeat, I think about all of the times that I feel like I've been defeated in my life, and what are some of the things that I did to overcome those and continue to live day by day. As you probably already know, if you've listened to some of the other episodes, I had a very, very close friend of mine take his life, and he was many years older than me, and he was in his early 40s when he did. And for me, when I was in middle school and high school and thinking about taking my life, I never thought I would live over the age of 25. And it never even dawned on me that someone in their 40s or even over 25 at that time would even contemplate not wanting to live. When we read books or poems and watch movies, we typically have the vision as life gets older, things get easier. And that is one of the things that I've talked about, but it really comes down to how do you deal with the things that come at you on a daily basis. And so defeat is one of those, right? Because, depending on how you take defeat can really determine the outcome, whether it be immediate or whether it be long-term. And so when we even look at the definition of defeat or defeated, oddly enough, the definition of defeat you'll commonly read says it defines being defeated. So when we take a look at the definition of defeated, one of those definitions are demoralized and overcome by adversity. Now, of course, if you're someone who is picked on daily and ridiculed, or even not daily, maybe you've only had someone say something that was chilling you to the bones once or twice in your life, and it's really made you think about who you are, the choices you've made, the clothes you wear, what have you, that can make you feel demoralized, and it can also make you feel overcome by adversity. So when we think about, well, how do we deal with defeat, and how do we deal with overcoming the feeling of being overwhelmingly overcome by adversity? For everyone, it's different, and I'll try to walk through some of those. But it also depends. We have to take a look at what is defeat and what characteristic I mean. Because if you are someone, let's say, who is very competitive, no matter what it might be, whether it be games or in school or reading or sports, whatever it might be, if we take sports, for example, if you're someone who's very competitive in sports, and let's say, you've always been very fast at track and a very fast runner, and you finally meet your match or someone who has beaten you, how do you deal with that? And a lot of this, sadly, comes back to how you feel about yourself and how you've internalized you, and you've grown from you from within, not from what other people have said. And so that, again, is one of the reasons why I keep coming back to focusing on yourself, digging deep, looking inward, and trying to build you. Because if you're comfortable with you and you understand that, of course, you can't win at everything in life. And yes, while you might be the fastest person and you might have, won awards and been notarized over time in your life, that becomes a standard, becomes a way that you live and a way that you feel. And it's kind of an expectation of how you're supposed to feel. So when you do finally meet your match and you become defeated, that can be a really hard blow and a hard pill to swallow, because, of course, you've been, this being, and you have had this label, and all of a sudden it's taken from you. A lot of people have a hard time dealing with that. So in a form of defeat in that particular aspect, if you don't really know who you are and you don't really know how you should feel and how you should cope, and of course it's knocked you down a peg or many in your emotional feelings and your emotional being, then it can be very difficult to try to look at anything positive. If you take a look at Ronda Rousey, if you're not familiar with who she is, she's a UFC champion, and she did a lot for UFC and mixed martial arts and fighting. I mean, it was predominantly male-driven, and not only through UFC, but also through other things in her career. It's been amazing what she's done. And when you take a look at her and her career, and then what happened when she finally did lose, it's all, there were interviews and news articles and writings and things about how depressed she was, and really how she was coping, and it was really hard. And I think she was able to, of course, over time, be able to really accept that it was a loss. And then she got back in the ring, and she ended up losing again. But the point is that she tried. She picked herself up and she tried again. And of course, that can always be difficult to lick your wounds and to pick yourself up and then to put yourself back out there and then to be defeated again. And if you look at someone who, whether it be yourself or someone you idolize or look up to, and you see what they've gone through, you've got to think about, well, what were their steps and what were the ways in which they continued to grow and continued to look forward and try to be positive. Now, of course, every time you get defeated or you get knocked down, no one expects, and nor should you expect yourself, to turn around that same day, that same hour, that minute, and then become, who you were and to be happy-go-lucky again. But it's all about having a foundation and building blocks to help you, really cope with a situation like that. So defeat in one manner obviously could just be whether you're a competitive person, you've never really been defeated, and being able to try to handle that. And that can go for a number of different reasons. It doesn't have to be sports. It could be, I don't want to be too personal and say too much about my friend that took his life, but his was a little bit different. He was a competitive person, but he was also raised and brought up in a family where the people, his father and father figures in his family, were very successful, and he never really found his ground. And I think that was hard for him to cope with, to be able to look at his father and his grandfather and other family members who even looked up to him to try to find out what he was going, where was he going to be in the family? What was he going to do that was going to again, continued to build a name and a staple in his family. And it just got to a point where I think that was one of the reasons he just couldn't take it anymore. He himself felt defeated. Even though no one made him feel that way, I think, when you look at the success of other people and you start to compare yourself to those other people, you end up putting yourself in a bad place, and you end up doing something or thinking things about yourself that you shouldn't. And that's self-inflicted. So my point is, obviously, it doesn't have to be something about sports or if you're competitive, but when we take a look at defeat, we have to think about that in so many different aspects of life, your daily life, and how you're going to deal with defeat later on. The other thing about defeat could really be a focus on if you're someone who has been ridiculed and picked on, and you do feel like you've been overcome by adversity, how do you deal with that? Of course, I don't have a single word or sentence answer. I think still a lot of that comes from building on your own and finding who you are and appreciating who you are and growing with who you are. And so when we start thinking about defeat, one of the easiest things to do is to give up. And I think that, if we're talking about people who are depressed and suicidal, and we're not putting that on the same plane as those who might be have mental issues or being chemically imbalanced. If we look at someone who is pushed to suicide or suicidal thoughts because of depression, a lot of that comes from defeat. I mean, if you think about it, if you wake up every day and you get dressed and you try to put your best foot forward, yet as soon as you walk into the same situation that you walk into all the time, and no matter what you do to change yourself, it's still the same, you feel defeated. And I know it's very difficult to think or to listen to me say, if you can just focus on yourself and build who you are, it's going to make this things easier. I know it's not a direct, that's not just a single answer that we can get and come up with. I mean, this is something that has to build and develop over time, because for every 10 nice things someone says about you, one bad thing can take all of that away. And if you reiterate to yourself 10 times every morning as you're getting rest or getting dressed and getting ready for work or school or whatever the event might be, and you've got family who's been supportive, yet you go to school and you have that one person say one thing, it just takes all of that away. But we can't look at that like defeat. And I know that sounds silly and stupidly simplistic, but it's almost something that you have to experience. And I wish I could think of a way to help you picture it or paint a picture. But I can't. I mean, I can look back at what I've done and what I've gone through, and I can't look back and say, well, there was one single time that sticks out that this started to happen. But when I look back at my life and I see who I am now, and I look inside and can really see who I am and what makes me tick, I can't look back to a single point in my life that says, well, this is a definitive moment in which that changed. Because it's not going to be one single thing. It's going to be steps. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie What About Bob with Bill Murray, but there is it's a comedy, but to me it plays kind of this because it talks about taking baby steps. His particular character He fears everything. He doesn't want to walk outside his house. He doesn't want to walk anywhere. He doesn't want to go anywhere because he's fearful of the world around him. And his therapist keeps telling him to take baby steps. Don't think about where you're going and the process that it takes to get there. Just take one baby step at a time to get you in that direction. So I say that here because we're trying to build the statue of you. And we have to build that piece by piece. And so, again, the earlier and the sooner you can start to build on yourself, the easier it becomes, and the faster this can start to apply to you in your life. And like I've said many times, I wished that I had thought about me earlier in my life. And that's one of the reasons why I do this, because I want to hopefully spark something in you to think, okay, if this one person out of many, many millions and millions and billions of people can make a change in their life, maybe if I just spend 5 minutes to close my eyes and listen to me breathe and just to think about me, that can be one step. And that's what I hope that this kind of leads you to. Because to circle back when we talk about defeat, if you're someone who's comfortable with themselves and they know who they are, or at least you've learned to build a healthy divider. I don't like building walls because, first off, they take a lot to put up and take a lot more to break down. But if you can put up a divider, something that is kind of a buffer of what's coming at you on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, however frequently it might be, to have that just kind of not come in as deep as it normally has. And when we think about defeat from someone who is depressed or suicidal, I can tell you from my own experience, obviously because I can't put myself in your shoes or know what's going on, it's not an answer. It's a dead-end solution, and it saddens me. It's such a sad solution that someone would feel that they've been so defeated in life that they can't move one more step or take one more breath or last one more day. It really does sadden me because, as I've said, I feel like 100 times, we don't know what tomorrow brings. And yes, we can think about, well, I know what tomorrow's going to bring. I'm going to wake up. This is going to happen. My mom's going to yell at me. My dad's going to say this, that, and the other. My brother, my sister, my friends, my people at school, my teachers, my whatever it is still going to be there. And that is true. Now, what do we do with that? Being able to cope with that is one thing. Being able to move forward is another thing. Being able to continue to build yourself is another thing. But finding a means to no longer live that life is not an answer. Because yes, while you can think and picture everything that's going to happen to you or what you think is going to happen to you in every single event or every moment of the day, you can't. Life is chance. Life is very unique for everyone. So, in one of the first episodes that I started with this, I think it was the first episode, I talked about doing nice things for people. And the reason I say that, or said that, is because, or one reason at least, is that it allows you to hopefully recognize the good things that you see on a daily basis. And by doing these actions, you typically start to recognize these actions in other things. I had many other examples, and I don't want to go down that road, but my point in that is we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know who's going to open the door for you, or you're not going to know what you might see that you didn't see yesterday, or something that you appreciate in yourself, or something that you see on a daily basis that you didn't see yesterday or the day before. And so while, yes, you might have an idea of what tomorrow might bring and what pain or depression or sorrow or angst or weight of life might be, you can't calculate for all the other aspects in a day. And I know you might think, well, the same thing happens to me every single day. Why would tomorrow be different? The point is you don't know. And I promise one of these days, it's almost going to be like you've been walking through a dark forest your recent life, or if you feel like your entire life, and all of a sudden the woods are going to end and you're going to be standing in front of an open field. And I know it can be hard to look through the forest and those trees and to try to imagine something as magnificent as a field, or if in your opinion it's ridiculous. My point is that we don't know. And so that's, like I said, one of the reasons why it pains me to think that someone would take their own life because of how they're feeling today. And I know, again, I can know how difficult that is. I know how hard it is to wake up every morning and to put your feet on the floor and just to be able to get out of bed. But you don't know what's going to happen. Now, that's not to say, I'm not implying that every day is going to progressively get easier and better. I hope that it does, but I'm not declaring that. And of course, certainly some days are going to be worse than others. But if you don't experience the rest of your life, you don't want to make a determination on it today. And I'm so glad the many times that I contemplated taking my life in attempts that it didn't work, or that I didn't do it, because of everything that I experience today. I can't imagine ever not experiencing. I can't imagine not speaking to you. It's to me, that's a big thing to be able to want to talk to people who possibly need help. And I hope in some form or fashion that I'm able to help you with that and to move on. And so when we look at defeat, and when we contemplate every minute of every day, and when we look at how every day we think it's going to be, don't be defeated. You can't defeat yourself on something that hasn't happened yet. And while, yes, every day might seem like a battle that you lose, not every day is a day that you're defeated. And I'm hoping that one day you're going to realize how magnificent you are, regardless of what you might think when you look in the mirror now, or internalize what other people say about you. So a couple, last week, I think it was, early last week, and I apologize for not doing an episode on this Friday. I forgot that it was Labor Day weekend, and I ended up having last-minute plans. But so, a previous Tuesday, I talked about finding something about you, whether it be physical, internal, mental, whatever it might be, for you to focus on that one thing for a week, Of course, now it's been longer, but I hope that you have continued to do that. I want you to, let's say, because one of the examples I gave, I think, was the tip of your finger. Look at whatever it is that you've hopefully looked at every day and thought something good about and built on about you. I want you to look at it. Look at the tip of your finger, whatever it might be. And don't even think anything positive like you've been doing. I want you to just internally appreciate it. And by taking a moment to do that, I hope that you can learn to do that with every aspect of you. And let's say it wasn't something physical. Let's say that you love the way your eyes look. Well, I guess that'd be physical. Let's see. You love the way that you're able to read complex sentences or to do math or to whatever, something that you can physically look at. Then close your eyes and just think about that process that you go through that makes that great. Or if you did think of something that you didn't necessarily like, hopefully you've grown now to appreciate more. Just take a moment to appreciate that time and you. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell you to do that every single week, but I hope that this is something that you would do on a daily basis. Because the more positive, I won't even say positive, the more that you realize about yourself on something that you didn't realize before, slowly builds you and your character and your base. And so by constantly thinking about you and what makes you great, the more you hear yourself say it, the less it will matter what other people think and say. Now, are we talking about becoming conceited? If that's what gets you there, that's perfectly fine. As long as you can learn to appreciate one thing, I hope it's everything, but one thing. But what I would encourage you to do is to think about something that you have never thought about yourself before in a positive way. Like I said, maybe you've never really paid attention to your hands or your fingers or your knees or whatever it might be. The goal is to look at every part of you, both externally and internally. One of the things that I was taught, because for what I've gone through, I have, over the years, had developed a lot of anxiety. And something someone told me to do was breathe. Now, I bring this up for a number of reasons. One, because if you're somebody like me who is going through a rough thing almost every single day, it can be hard just to calm yourself. Oddly enough, breathing, and I'm not a spiritual or religious person throwing anything at you. I'm just trying to get you to think about you. Okay, so one of the things was breathing. There is a breathing technique. I can't remember exactly what it's called, so I apologize for being not prepared. But it involves, I think it's called the 5-3-5 breathing method. So what you do is you breathe all the way out, and then you breathe in slowly for 5 seconds, and you hold it for 5 seconds, and then you breathe out for 5 seconds. Now, there's a couple of things that this does, but physically in your body, what happens is behind your diaphragm, in your chest, you have a nerve, and by breathing in and breathing out slowly, it activates this nerve. And what this nerve does is help release, I think it's dopamine, that helps you relax. So I had to do it because of my anxiety, and I had a lot of anxiety attacks for many, many years. And doing that really helped me. Now, the reason I bring this up now is because hopefully you can apply that to something in your life or daily. But the reason I bring this up now is because if you're looking or thinking about what I asked you to over the last 2 weeks, I want you to breathe. I want you to do this method, and you'll do it 3 times. So by, again, breathing all of your air out through your mouth, breathing in for 5 seconds, holding it for 5 seconds, and breathing out for 5 seconds. Do that as you're concentrating on that aspect about you. And the reason I ask you to do that is because you might be listening to this. Well, if you're doing it driving, just try to be careful, pay attention. But if you're sitting down and you're listening to this, you may have just got through doing something and you decided to sit down and listen to this, and you're not really in the right frame of mind to think about you or your finger or how great you are at math or whatever it might be. So by breathing this 3 times, it can kind of help you calm and concentrate. And then keep this in mind as you do this on a daily basis when you are thinking about something new about you and appreciating something about you. Because by kind of centering yourself and hopefully calming your thoughts down, bringing yourself together, you can really concentrate on a new aspect of you. I'm thinking. I know it can be difficult to be positive. And I hope that by me talking, this kind of helps. And my goal, my ultimate goal is for you to realize how powerful you are. And if you're depressed and you feel defeated, you might not think about moving on in life. And so I hope that we can stop that. And I hope that you one day are confident about yourself. And defeat is just something that happens or doesn't. But when it does, you remain you. Yes, it's certainly okay to feel sad. I mean, being defeated is being defeated, no matter what the aspect. But I hope that you're able to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. Because like I've said, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. But I hope for all of you that it brings a new day and it brings a new light to who you are. And it brings you to thinking about your future and how everything that you're doing today and focusing on yourself and growing as a great person, how that's going to continue with you in life. So I hope that this is helpful. I know defeat is rough. I mean, I could keep talking about all the times in my life I've been defeated, and some have been some really hard blows. I'll give you one simplistic example. I think I've mentioned that I was an instructor for a while, a technical instructor. And at the end of every class, you typically have to be not graded, but you have an evaluation that's given to you. Now, if you're somebody who really concentrates and focuses on your work or whatever your task might be at hand, imagine trying to be the best that you can be and educate others with the information that you know. And then for you to spend hours and days and weeks of nothing but studying, learning, preparing your speeches, what have you, to have one, if not every person in the class, say something bad. The first several times I taught, I thought, I'll never be able to do this. There's no way that I can put myself through this. And I kid you not, there were many times where I had contemplated physically harming myself so that I had an excuse not to go and teach. Now, of course, I never did any of those things, but I really thought long and hard about it. And I guess I put myself in that situation because I chose that career, especially dealing with what I had dealt with growing up. I kind of was the bane of my own existence by putting my own self out there and trying to deal with ridicule. But one of the things that I learned was I can't make everyone happy, and I can't know everything. And I'm okay with that because I do my best. I know that I do my best. I can never anticipate every question I'll get. Therefore, I can't have the exact or the immediate answer that person might be looking for. And so I've learned to utilize that in my entire life, or at least, later in my life because of being put through that and putting myself through that. But it made me realize that I'm okay with having people judge me in a bad way because I know that I did everything that I could, and because I was confident and comfortable with who I was. Now, I say confident loosely because, again, I contemplated physically harming myself just so I wouldn't have to teach. But it comes over time. And so I say this because, again, on your daily basis, depending on what you're going through, you might think about harming yourself just so you don't have to go to school or to work or wherever it might be that you're constantly trying to avoid. But if you know that you are the best that you can be because of who you want to be, in the end, it doesn't matter what other people think or say. So that's just the one example that I could come up with. I have many examples, but one that I could fit in a short few-minute window. It's tough. Defeat is tough. But you have to remember, not every day is a battle, and not every day will you be defeated. And one day, you'll be confident in yourself, and it won't matter. Or if it does, it's something you can learn from and not feel completely defeated by. Well, I'm just over 38 minutes. I appreciate you listening. I hope it was helpful. Again, if you need to have me discuss a topic or you just have a question, you can email me at lifeliveseries@gmail.com. This is live on Spreaker. I also upload it to Podomatic. I even have I don't have my link anymore. I even have a site on Podomatic that I will eventually put up in one of these videos, so you can go there. And just if you want to, again, another way to reach out to me. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify. But I appreciate you listening, and I hope it was helpful. And just remember to take care of yourself. Until next time.